Welcome to the Sports Sesh podcast. I'm your host, Mason Shatwell, and my co-host is James Evans. This week we've not got a guest on; it's just us two. How are you doing, James?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Obviously it's been nearly 2 months since we've had our last episode together, and yeah, it's been a bit of a weird one. We used to having a third person on, whether it be a fan or a guest, but yeah, this is something obviously we haven't done in a while, but I'm very much looking forward to it, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I've seen this morning the fixtures for the Premier League came out. How do you feel about your club's first few fixtures?
I'm to be honest, as a footballing fan, as a Chelsea fan, I think we'll be very much thankful and we'll be snapping the Premier League's arm off because we've been very fortunate with our first five fixtures. Obviously, we're on our opening game on the 14th. We're away to Brighton, then we're home to Liverpool, then West Brom, then Palace and Southampton for our first five fixtures. So we've got to be hoping for all 15 points, but a minimum 13 would be nice. And I think our 3 out of our first 5 games are at home, so they're very favourable in that sort of aspect. But I believe our our final month ain't going to be easy. I mean, in May we've got the likes of City, Fulham, City, Arsenal, and Leicester all to play for, both at home and away. So it's certainly not going to be an easy ride. I mean, hopefully as a Chelsea fan we'll get top 4 by then, and yeah, hopefully we won't have to rely on the last month of fixtures. And yeah, how would you assess your sort of early fixtures?
Well, the first game we were supposed to be playing on the 12th against Burnley, I think it was, and because of how we got on in the Europa this season, that's not going to take place on the 12th. That's been postponed to later in the season. But I think our first game of the actual season is going to be at home to Crystal Palace on the 19th, and I don't know, because I see we'll get onto the Europa League soon, but how we've performed the last game against Sevilla wasn't too bad, but against the likes of Copenhagen, no disrespect, but with the players United's got, we should be walking over them. But we need a few signings this season. But the one thing that I'm not too happy with is a lot of people are just hanging on to the thoughts of Jadon Sancho coming to United. It's not just Sancho. We need other players in other positions. But how many more signings do you think Chelsea need to do this season, or do you think you're sorted?
I believe we need obviously Havertz is inbound, touch wood. Ben Chilwell, that might be done in the next couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, just under. I don't know. He's keen on moving, so it'll be interesting to see where we go from there. And I think after those signings, we need to prioritise in the centre back department. And obviously, we've been linked with the likes of Lewis Dunk, John Stones, Thiago Silva, who's on his way to Fiorentina. So we've been linked with a fair few players, but hopefully, if we do get Chilwell and Havertz over the line, I think we will need to prioritise the centre back. The goalkeeping situation, obviously, it's a bit of a weird one. Like, obviously, at the start of the season, since the restart, we were so desperate to get rid of Kepa, and then obviously since the summer started, we were linked to the likes of Oblak and Nana, Henderson, and what have you, and then the links have sort of died down a bit in recent times. So whether that means he's going to get another chance at Chelsea, I don't know, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But if we get Chilwell and Havertz over the line, don't expect Chelsea to sort of finish there. I think we'll hopefully make a few more signings after that.
How do you think Chelsea's season is going to go next season?
Listen, I think this is all part of a 3-year plan. I think the first season was Lampard's first ever in the Premier League as a manager, so he did very well. I think he overachieved from my sort of perspective. I know there are some Twitter trolls out there that go, "Oh, Chelsea went from 3rd to 4th." Well. But you look at it on paper, look at the squad we had. We had the transfer ban as well, that didn't help, and we did well. I think with Lampard did very well considering it's not really his preferred team. And we had to stick with the youth a lot, and the likes of Reece James, Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, Tomori. So he did very well with the limited options and resources he had. But come next season, it's a sort of feeling out process. I think the most important thing is for us to bridge the gap between ourselves and Liverpool and City. And then in the 2021-22 season, that's when we really need to sort of challenge for the title. And I think, next season we'll probably get top 4 again. And I'm guessing that's probably the same with you, mate.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying before, our recent performances haven't shown. But if we get the signings, I certainly think that we're going to be in the top 4 again. But depending on who we sign and how we play, and also like yourselves, I think it could be possible for us to bridge a gap between ourselves and second and first. That's not me saying I think United's going to win the league as much as I'd love it, but I don't think that's going to happen yet. But I think we could bridge the gap. So it's going to be a lot. I think it'll be a lot closer season come this time next year.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think Liverpool will do it again. I mean, you look at Manchester City, they've made some decent signs already in Nathan Ake and Ferran Torres from Valencia, so they're sort of keen to, get last season's disaster behind them and sort of get back on the high horse and sort of challenge for trophies again. I think that's what they need to do, and I think with the Champions League really affected them, and that could really, go against them in the future. I think you look at the likes of Sterling, De Bruyne, they might want to leave soon because De Bruyne in particular wants that. He's getting on a bit, and he obviously wants the Champions League, and he's not going to hang around for another year or two, at City. And if they're not going to do it, then he might be forced to leave, and if he does leave, it'll be a shame.
Yeah. Well, while we're on thoughts of Champions League, what have you thought of the semi-finals that took place in the past few days?
Obviously, since the restart, it's been a bit of I like the format. I mean, it's good to get it over and done with in like 90 minutes and maybe penalties in 120 minutes extra time, what have you. It's got that World Cup feeling, that knockout feeling, and obviously the Champions Leagues in Portugal, the Europa Leagues in Germany, I believe. And obviously it's a knockout phase, and if it had the fans, it would be a lot better. But I thoroughly enjoyed some of the performances. I think you look at it in the Champions League, Leipzig in particular against Madrid, they've set up perfectly to counter Simeone's defensive tactics, and it kind of shows that it's sort of not worked in a way for Atletico, and they need a plan B, and they just do not have that right now. They're always so reliant on that plan A defensive, excuse my language, shithousery in Europe. And for the past couple of years it's worked, sometimes it hasn't, but now Leipzig without Werner, they proved that it hasn't worked. PSG, they were very fortunate against Atalanta, but they looked all right against Leipzig with a comfortable 3-0 win, I believe. And Bayern Munich, Christ, they've been wiping the floor with everyone, haven't they? And I think since the restart, I thought they were going to win it. And I think even a bit before that, I always was confident. Before they battered us, I had a sneaky suspicion that they would win the Champions League. And I thought it would be Bayern Munich versus Man City in the semi-final. But, Pep's got to hold his hand up. And I think I was listening to Steve McManaman in commentary for the City Lyon game, and he was saying how City, obviously they matched Lyon man for man in terms of their formation and their approach to the game, and how City were going to be better because they got better players. But that's not necessarily the truth. I mean, Lyon have been playing with that system for the majority of the season. They're glued to it within their minds, and I think with Manchester City, they rarely play three at the back. And I think that sort of went against them in the game. And I thought fair play to Lyon. They held their own against the top side. And, many thought that Man City would batter them. And it's got all the ingredients for a good game in the final on Sunday. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think you look at Bayern last night. I mean, they won 3-0. They didn't batter Lyon at their chances. But they didn't even have to get out of second gear against Lyon. And they still won 3-0. So I'm looking forward to the final. And I'm probably going to go for a Bayern one. But what about you, mate?
Well, with how PSG have been playing as well, I don't know, because when there's a team that's never won it before in the final, I'd like to see them win, but no offense to them, but it's PSG. It's the oil team. So
yeah,
I think PSG might win it, but I'm gonna go for Bayern. I'm gonna hope Bayern wins it, because the players on PSG's team, don't get me wrong, world class, but when you're just buying your way to the top, it's a bit not on merit, is it? Seen, what was it, Bayern Munich's team, I think, that they fielded last night. I think altogether it cost them around 90 million to put to the team, and to be honest, I think there's a few players in the PSG squad that's worth all that PSG have paid more than that for themselves. So I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Bayern in the final.
Yeah, 100%. I'm probably going to go for a 3-1 Bayern. I mean, I wasn't convinced when PSG played Atalanta, and obviously they did well against Leipzig to get the job done against a Leipzig team under Nagelsmann, who've been they're a joy to watch. They always have been. I think the meteoric rise of Leipzig proved last night as to where they are. I mean, a couple of years ago they were struggling. Well, they were struggling financially, and then obviously they got taken over by Red Bull. They worked their way up the footballing pyramid in Germany, and in their first season ever in the Bundesliga, they got to the Champions League spots. I think they finished second or third. So it's just a testament as to where they're at right now, and then they're arguably one of Europe's biggest teams right now, and I think that's fair play to them. I think under Nagelsmann, he's 33, and a lot of the players are still playing at 33, and to coach a good team at that age, it's just a fair play to him. He deserves all the plaudits. I know if they had Werner, maybe it would have been different, but no. I mean, to get to the Champions League semi-final, it's great. But PSG, I'm never always convinced. I'm never convinced. I think they have the tendency to bottle in big games. And I think you look at Bayern, they're not gonna. I don't see PSG at all creating anything clear cut. They might get a goal early on, but I just feel like Bayern just sort of have the ability and the sort of system and the setup whereby they can sort of deal and ride the pressure of PSG early on. I think, I'm going for a 3-1.
What do you think about the Europa League final?
It's unfortunate for you, isn't it? I mean, as Inter Milan, I always had a sneaky feeling that they would do it as well. I don't know, Conte's sort of had his struggles this season. Well, he claims that they've had their struggles, but with the board not backing them. But the board have signed 14 players this season. I know they're not the standout players, but you look at the likes of Ashley Young, Alexis Sanchez, Lukaku, they've done all right. I mean, Lukaku is I think he might be their top goal scorer this season. Ashley Young's chipped in with a couple of good performances, same as Sanchez recently. And I think Inter Milan against Shakhtar, it was just very one-sided. Such a brilliant performance. I know it's Shakhtar Donetsk, but you got to beat what's in front of you, I guess. And I think they played very well. Lukaku chips in with a couple of goals, and he got put in a very good performance. I just think with Conte's setup and his sort of approach to the team, I think they will do Sevilla in the final. But you know what Sevilla are like. They're the Europa League team. They always turn up for a Europa League. And I think with the game against you, the amount of chances you created, you just could not finish your dinner. But Sevilla, I thought defensively, some of their last-ditch tackles were second to none. They're brilliant defensively. Lopetegui, he's got some good players in his ranks, and I think, although I think they'll just come up short against Inter Milan, I really do. It'll be a very close game nonetheless. But if they approach the same way as they did against you with Inter, I think Inter will do them. I just don't see Sevilla lasting for 90 minutes, but. Take nothing away from Sevilla. They deserve all the plaudits this season. I think with United, I think you, as a United fan, I think you'd be very disappointed in your side's performance.
When we played Sevilla on Sunday, I think it was. We didn't play awful. We had all the chances, but it was like when we was playing Copenhagen. The chances we had, just couldn't put them away, and. It was hard to watch because obviously we could have put them away, but we didn't. But full credit to Sevilla, who on the night got the goals, but their second goal shouldn't have happened. The defence in United, don't ask me what that was about, because there's Harry Maguire, Lindelof, it was all there, but no one was doing anything. So. And when they just stood still, I just thought, what's the point?
Yeah, I know. I think that's what you need to go for a new sort of centre back as well, for a partner with Maguire. I think a lot of people have been criticising Maguire as of late and throughout the season, whether he's lived up and fulfilled that 80 million price tag. I'm not too sure, but you need a defensive partner for Maguire. And I think if you don't get one in the summer, obviously United fans they're very hopeful in getting Sancho, but if you don't look elsewhere, you're just going to be stuck in the mud next season.
100%. And then while I was going to go on about Inter, they played really well this season in the Europa, and as you was on about Lukaku being the top goal scorer, he's on 33 goals for the season, and I know Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, he's got the record at Inter for the most goals in a debut season with 34, and as we know with the Europa League final coming up tomorrow, innit?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Lukaku could well and easily equal or even break that record, which I see happening, but don't know if Inter can win, because the way Sevilla seem to turn up, I've got a feeling it might go into. I've got a feeling we might be seeing a penalty shootout on our hands, to be honest with you. And then I think there's no term of, well, there's a strategy, as you say, but it's whoever can save the penalties. It's not who's the better team in the penalty shootout. So
yeah,
it's a 50-50 for me in the final, but I think it's going to be a penalty shootout.
Yeah, I mean, I see. Obviously, I did predict Inter to win, but it's going to be a lot closer than people make out to be. I love the way Sevilla set up, and I think with United, they're very patient in a way. Like they had to weather the storm. Defensively, they set up well, and they're very aggressive with their centre backs. Obviously, look at Diego Carlos, who's been a very big target for a lot of big European teams this year. Going forward, they've got Campos, who's a bit of a bully himself, who's a bit of a big lad out on the wing. They've got players that can hurt Inter Milan, but I just don't. It'll take some time before Inter will eventually break them down. And yeah, I do agree with you though. I think it'll be a close one. I think Inter will get it done over 90 minutes, however.
Well, either way, I think both finals we're gonna look for two very entertaining games, and fingers crossed they are both good games. But now we're going to go on to the UFC and UFC 252. What did you make of it?
It was a bit of a weird one, wasn't it? Like, you look at it on paper, I think. Obviously, when you look at it, Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier, they settled the score in the trilogy, and back in 2018, Cormier moved up from light heavyweight to win the title. And then Stipe Miocic accepted his revenge last year. It's a tough one. I wanted Cormier to win, because it was his last fight inside the cage, and I did predict that it would go late on into the rounds, but obviously they went the distance for the first time, and you got to give Miocic some respect. I mean, obviously with the eye poke, didn't really help Daniel Cormier at all. Obviously, he did say it affected him for a large chunk of the fight, and rightly so. He said he couldn't see out of one of his eyes. So it was a strange fight to call. I mean, I'm surprised as to why DC didn't implement a bit more of his wrestling. Did it very much early on, but you've got to give some respect to Miocic with regards to some of his defensive approach. And he did well. Miocic, he thoroughly deserved the win, and there were a lot of standout performances in that card, and obviously one of them being Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Obviously lost his first professional bout against Francis Ngannou a couple of months ago, and facing Junior Dos Santos he's no walkover JDS, and I mean, Rozenstruik, he put in a very good performance. I was very impressed with the way he fought. I think both fighters had their moments in round one. I think Dos Santos landed some hard right hands. Rozenstruik was landing a lot of leg kicks as well, and that's a testament to his kickboxing background. He had his best moment towards the final end of the first round. I think he caught JDS with a kick and then landed with a flurry of punches, which backdated JDS against the fence, and obviously he got the finish in round two. He came forward with a couple of combinations that forced JDS back. Then obviously, he got the finish, and it'll be interesting to see who he fights next. I think Jairzinho Rozenstruik will probably face the winner of, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I would say potentially the winner /loser maybe of Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis, Whether he wants to face that, whether he wants to wait that long, I don't know. But I would say the winner of Overeem versus Saki, but I don't think he'll want to face Overeem again, rightly so. So yeah, it's a bit weird. There are options. You got Volkov versus Watt Harris coming up in October. The Khabib card could face the winner of that one. So there are options for him. Elsewhere, I was very impressed with Chris Daukaus against Parker Porter. Obviously, a lot of you, so many people backed against Chris going into this fight. Just going into the fight, he could literally punch the living daylights out of anyone. A lot of his fights, professional fights, were stopped by early KOs, TKOs, and the same with Parker Porter. A lot of his fights were finished early on. He's a hard hitter himself, so it had all the ingredients for a big, great fight. And each guy, in the first, they landed some great punches early on in just under a minute. They had their moments, and as they closed the distance, they both had some hard shots, which they both landed. But ultimately, Chris Daukaus had landed several good right hands over the top. And obviously, moments later, I think Porter tried to push forward, but Daukaus returned with some hard shots, and then landed a clean combination to drop him later. So, they were the fair few standout performances. I was also impressed with Pineda against Herbert Burns. I was tempted to back him, but obviously I did go for Burns in the end. But yeah, he certainly impressed me a lot. I think many people ruled him out last weekend. Many didn't give him his prayer, but he did very well against Herbert Burns. I think he made it look pretty much easy, and it'll be interesting to see who he fights next. And one final thing I was impressed with is obviously Marlon Vera against Sean O'Malley, which we probably will touch upon in a minute.
Yeah.
It's a shame, really, the stoppage and how it ended and with the injury, but all the credit deserves to go to Vera on that one. And yeah, I think it sets up, he's just burst back onto the bantamweight scene, and obviously he's been around for a while, but he's still only 27. And that win over Sean O'Malley is certainly going to put him his name on the map again.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to be a bit disappointed in me. Fell asleep through most of the card on Saturday.
Why?
I tried to, but I remember watching the last 3 fights on the main card, the Jairzinho, Rosenstruck, and JDS, as you say. And before the fight, I was backing JDS because, as we know, JDS is no walk in the park for anyone, no matter who you are, unless you're Francis Ngannou. I didn't know if Jairzinho was going to get it done, but obviously he has. And as you say, there's a number of options for him. It just depends how long he wants to wait. But I don't know if they'd give him. If he won his fight against Fabricio Verdum, I would have said maybe Alexander Gustafsson, but I don't know if we're going to see him against someone like Jairzinho, or if at all again. And the other fights that she was going on about, Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier, yeah, the eye poke was a big factor, but as you say, we've got to put some respect on Stipe's name. Now there's no doubt he's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. And look, I think it was at the end of the second round, I believe, second or third round, almost knocked him out. And so he knocked him down in the fight, and he did have the upper hand in the fight. So full credit to Stipe. And then, as you say, Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. I was so good about that, man. The way Sean's injury and then the way Vera finishes it. But again, we've got to put some respect on Mal's name. So, but what do you think is next for O'Malley when he comes back from injury?
It's a no-brainer, really. From my sort of perspective, it's got to be John Dodson, in my opinion. I mean, he obviously lost in the same bout to Merab Dvalishvili by a decision. Well, Merab was just dominant from start to finish. I think the matchup is sort of to justify. It'd be an interesting matchup. There's a path to victory for both men, and it's sort of a matchup which will see the pair, like I said, justify a place in the bantamweight top 15. Like I said, there's path to victory for both men, and I think with O'Malley, I've said it time and time again, usually a loss with like a hot prospect, an unbeaten prospect, usually it's sort of a loss will do him a favour. Like, they can go back to the drawing board and figure out where they went wrong in that fight. And obviously, it was a freak accident, the injury. it's a shame how it happened, but he'll be gutted, and I think next it has to be John Dodson. I think it'll be a perfect opportunity and perfect way to get back on the win column, sort of work his way back up into the contention again. But who do you think Emmanuel face next?
Well, I believe John Dodson as well, because I thought after his fight against Eddie Wyland that Dodson was going to be next for him, but obviously weren't the case. But now we think Dodson and O'Malley's the next fight to make. What's next for Chito Vera?
I've seen a lot of people say Rob Font. I do agree. I think that's the perfect sort of fight for him to stake a claim and sort of push for the top 10 contention. I think it'll be an interesting matchup from UFC standpoint between Rob Font and Chito Vera. I'll be interested to see how that fight goes. I mean, Rob Font, I said he's no walkover himself, but I think Vera has all the sort of skills within his arsenal to sort of get the job done. But I think that's a no-brainer for me, really. Next one, I think Vera does sort of deserve the right to fight a guy like Rob Font and sort of push himself into top 10 contention. And then who knows, he might win the Rob Font and then get a top 5 contender next. So, there are options for both men. And you look at Vera, I think a win against Rob Font will certainly put himself in contention again. I think that's the fight to make next from my sort of standpoint. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But another fighter that's on topic at the minute is obviously Stipe Miocic, and I seen an interview with Dana White, and can't remember who he was talking with. He said Stipe, win or lose, was going to be in the next title fight for the UFC title anyway. If he lost against Cormier, Francis is next in line. So by the sounds of that, it sounds like Francis Stipe 2 is the fight to make. What do you think of that?
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously we've got John Jones moving up potentially, and you look at the namesake and you think he would get the immediate title shot, but Francis, Dana White was right to say Francis Ngannou would be next. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. But I don't know. It's a tough one. Obviously, Francis Ngannou's in such great form right now. My God, it's unbelievable. But with Miocic, I think he'll have to sort of use his decent ground game ability. He'll have to do what he did against Ngannou the first time if he's going to win. I think, I don't know. I genuinely, it's so tough to call. I'm always 50-50 with this fight as the rematch. I can just see Ngannou knocking him out. But then I can also see Miocic just taking the fight to the floor, just frustrating Ngannou a lot. And, Miocic has got a chin on him, in all fairness. And obviously, take away the first fight with Daniel Cormier, he's very good. He can take a punch, Miocic. So whether Ngannou can sort of knock him out, get him done early. If Ngannou can't get him done early, then we'll sort of see a one-sided affair whereby Miocic comes out on top. I do think Miocic has got his number. I just don't know if sort of Ngannou's got all the tools and the skill set to beat a guy like Miocic. I just don't know. But once Miocic retires, I do see Ngannou being a champion.
100%. But by the rankings and on the form Ngannou is, I believe he should be Stipe rematch. But as you mentioned, John Jones potentially. Well, he said he's moving up to heavyweight. He's vacated the title, and now there's a vacant title fight for the light heavyweight title, which we'll get onto soon. It's hard to say no to John getting the immediate title shot, but does he deserve it? Coming straight up, I don't think so. But that's only because I think Francis deserves it more because of the win streak he's on and how he's won the fight. But if Stipe is to sit out for a while, who says no to a Francis John Jones fight?
Yeah, no, I think everyone would be down for that. I'd certainly put my hand up and say I'd be very keen for that. I think we will see Miocic sit out for a while. I don't know, maybe they'll do a vacant heavyweight title. I can see that, to be fair. I really can see that. I can see maybe an interim heavyweight title fight. I don't know, but all I can say is I don't think we'll see Miocic until round about the same time next year, maybe it's tad earlier. I just don't know. I think we will see him sit out for a while, just to obviously spend time with his family, recover and rest, and then get back into the training regime. But no, I think for his namesake, I wouldn't be surprised if John Jones got the immediate title shot, just because of what he's achieved in the UFC is just phenomenal, second to none. There's no denying Francis Ngannou. He does deserve a title shot. So it's a tough one to call. I think right now there's so many options at heavyweight, but yeah, it'll be an interesting one to see. I think Ngannou deserves it, but I wouldn't be surprised if John Jones gets it.
If the fight between Francis and John Jones happens, how do you see that one playing out?
Oh my God, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Like, heavyweight for John Jones is certainly going to be a difficult kettle of fish. You know, he's ruled the light heavyweight division for such a long time, and obviously in his words recently, he's cleared out the division. And I totally agree. He has cleared out the division. Obviously, look at his last performances against Reyes and Thiago Santos. I know he won via split decision, but which proved controversial in some people's mind. But at the end of the day, he still won the fight. So I genuinely don't know. It's so tough. And I think for John Jones, it'll sort of be like the same with Stipe's approach, like I referred to earlier against Ngannou, sort of use his decent like ground game ability. You know, he's predominantly a hard-hitting striker. But John Jones has got some elite wrestling as well. So if he can take Ngannou down, which won't be easy, well, in terms of obviously the weight difference and the sort of the power and the advantage, etc., being a heavyweight, but if he can take him down and frustrate him, then maybe we could see John Jones get the ground and pound and sort of weather the early storm. I don't know. I mean, all it takes for Ngannou is one punch. I mean, as of right now, I'm not giving a prediction for that fight if it does happen. I mean, I want to see the fight signed on the dotted line before I can have my say. As of right now, I don't think it will happen in the near future. So I want to sit this one out. I don't know. It's tough to call. Although I'm a huge John Jones fan.
I'm the same with you. I'm not going to give a prediction, but same with you. I'm a huge John Jones fan, but I love Francis as well with what he's doing at the minute. And it's one of them. It's like it's the same as if Stipe Francis has the rematches. John Jones' ground game really good. Is he going to use that, or is he going to want to prove that he can stand with the heavyweights like Francis? And if he does that, it could be an early night for John. If he gets caught with one of them punches that Rosenstrike got caught with, then I think he's going to be seeing the canvas very soon.
Yeah, I think there's many people criticise him. I've seen a fair few criticising Ngannou in terms of the way he much just swings, you know, rapidly and wildly, and then some people say he gets lucky in terms of his connections and how he punch people. But there's no denying his power. I think it's certainly a tough one to score. If the fight does happen, come back to me. But as of right now, I'm not having to say on anything at all. It's certainly a tough one.
While we were on the topic of John Jones, the title, he's just vacated the light heavyweight title. There's now already a vacant title fight for, I think it's UFC 253.
Yeah, next month.
Dominic Reyes and Yana fighting. I don't want to pronounce his last name because I know I can't. But how do you see that play out? How do you see that play out?
It's a tough one. I'm a big fan of Dominic Reyes. I think, you know, huge respect from Jan Blachowicz. He's been around the game for a while, the MMA game, and Dominic Reyes he's obviously, I think he's early 30s, late 20s, but he's reasonably new, if you know what I mean. Like, he's fought John Jones, but he hasn't sort of had the huge big fights, if you know what I mean. So this would be a tough test for me against Jan Blachowicz, who he's a very hard hitter and can obviously knock the living daylights out of you. As with regards to the fight and I think the fight does go the distance, or we could see a late finish for Dominic Reyes. I mean, it's just a case of whether or not, because Dominic Reyes has been, you know, he's had a 5-round fight. He went 5 rounds with Jones. He looked all right in terms of his cardio, probably slipped off a tiny bit towards the end, but he looked all right in the fight with John Jones. And I think going into the championship rounds, it really does tell as to, you know, who's really got it and who hasn't. I don't know if Jan Blachowicz has ever been in a 5-round fight. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I see Dominic Reyes taking that one by decision. I don't know. I think he'll be able to weather the early storm and the pressure and the power by Blachowicz and sort of get the job done.
Well, I think with Jan's almost like a bit like Francis, but obviously not as much power. I don't think. If he catches Dom, it could be an early night, but as you say, I think Dom's going to get it done by decision. But I'm just hoping for a good fight, because it sounds like one of them fights where it's labelled to be a great fight, but then it's just excuse my French, a shit show. Then, yeah.
No, I don't know. I reckon it'll be a good fight. Like, both men have been very vocal across social media. They want to be the next in line for the title. They want the next title shot. I know Dominic Reyes has already fought John Jones, but he wants to fight him again. Same with Blachowicz, calling them out. And now that they've got the chance to fight for the vacant title, both are going to want to show to the world that they deserve to be a champion. And I think it's got all the ingredients of being a great great fight.
Well, on the same card, I think so. I hope I'm not wrong. We got Adesanya and Paulo Costa for the middleweight title. We've been waiting for this for a while to be announced. Both guys don't like each other. It's got everything in the fight to be a great fight. How do you see that one playing out?
I'm enjoying the beef. I'm enjoying the promos between the pair so far. It's just, like I said, it's got all the ingredients of being a great fight. I'm so looking forward to this. I'm a very, very huge Adesanya fan. I've watched him in his kickboxing days before his, MMA sort of career, and I've been a huge fan of Adesanya, and his striking is just second to none. I mean, you look at Paulo Costa, he's a hard hitter himself. He's undefeated like Adesanya, so if somebody's there has got to go. It's that old adage. Like I said, I'm very much looking forward to this one. It's just got all the ingredients to be superb. Like, if I were the year candidate, I'm very, very much looking forward to it. As to how it'll go, I think, what Paulo Costa like. He loves to sort of connect and sort of throw early on and sort of put the pressure on. But again, come the championship rounds, can he sort of last? Does he have the cardio to last against a guy like Adesanya, who's obviously been in the title fight and been 5 rounds to Kelvin Gastelum? He proved that he can go the full 25 distance and still go. I don't know. I think with Paulo Costa, he deserves to be at the top, seat at the middleweight table. But I would like to have seen him fought maybe a Cannonier or a Robert Whittaker before he fought for the title. Is it too soon? I don't know. It's a tough one. You can make arguments to sort of both ends. He's undefeated. He's done very well to get to where he is right now. But on the other hand, has he fought the bigger guy, a fair few of the bigger guys yet? You look at his fight with Yoel Romero. There's a fair few that thought Yoel Romero won that fight, and it's a flip of a coin. I thought it was a very close fight. I see this one going the full distance, or at least someone's going to get a late finish. I think Adesanya will take this one late on or by decision. I think just his sort of versatile approach in terms of his striking and his sort of game plan, I think it'll be too much for Costa, whether or not he has cardio to last a full championship rounds. I don't know. It'd be a tough one to call, mate.
Well, I think the first round or two is going to be the most dangerous for Adesanya.
Oh yeah,
Costa's just going to storm forward, and even with no energy, if he's got no energy in whatever round, I think he's still going to do that no matter what. But if he gets to, I say round 4, if he does it, if he's not got much energy left, Adesanya catches him. It could be like, I've got a feeling it might be like when Adesanya knocked out Whittaker. Whittaker went forward, got clipped, then it was nights out. So I'm going for a round 4 finish for Adesanya.
Yeah, no, fair play.
Last thing on my list, I know you've got some more to talk about after. There's a rumoured fight between Uriah Hall and Anderson Silva. Don't know how I feel about this. I don't know if I'd like to see Anderson Silva fight again, because it's just I don't see him winning, and I don't see them much point in him competing. He's done everything. I just don't want him to go down the road of, no disrespect, but like BJ Penn. I know he's not going to fight again now, but he was on a 7-fight losing streak. He still wanted to keep fighting when there was nothing left for him to do. That's the same with Anderson Silva. There's nothing left for him to do in the middleweight division. He's not going to be able to compete with the likes of Adesanya, Costa, and that now, even if he got back up there. But I'm not a huge fan of this fight. I'll watch it because it's Anderson Silva, but not a huge fan of this fight.
I've seen many people slate Anderson Silva saying he's overrated, blah blah blah, what have you. But when he was in the peak of his career, he was just sensational to watch. Don't get me wrong, I love watching Adesanya fight. Anderson Silva fight. Back in the day, he was unstoppable. No, I think he's just sort of fighting for the sake of it, just to run his UFC contract down, just to get a bit of extra money before he retires. I don't know. I don't want to see him fight. Like you said, he's lost his last win. Oh Christ, when was his last one? I genuinely don't know. It was
A couple of years ago now.
yeah, it was a fair few years ago. Like it might have been. I would have said Nick Diaz, but that got overturned, didn't it? So he's.
I think he's won one since then.
Yeah, won one since then, and was that a decision or something like maybe Brunson? I think I want to say, but something like that. I don't know.
I can't remember. I know. Last year he lost twice. I think it was against Adesanya, and then I want to say Cannonier.
Yeah. He lost to Adesanya and Cannonier in Brazil. I just want to know. I really want to know who he lost to. I won. I think I want to say it was Derek Brunson a couple of years ago, but it's I don't get why he's still fighting right now. Yeah, it was against Derek Brunson in 2017. I don't know why he's still fighting. It's just such a huge risk, and I do agree there is aspects of BJ Penn within just fighting for the sake of it. But he's a legend at the end of his day. But I think it's just he needs to know when to give up, and I think now's the time to just sort of hang the gloves up and just sort of because every time he steps into that octagon and loses, he's just ruining his legacy. Is just going down every time he steps into the octagon. He knows his time's up. There's just no chance. There's no path for him to get back to the top. And even if he does beat Yarahol and sort of, he'll probably be ranked number 10 or in around the top 10. He's not going to beat any of the big boys. He's already lost Cannonier. He won't beat Whittaker. And yeah, it's a tough. I don't want to see him fight again. It's such a weird one, but I don't know. I'm not. I don't know, man. I'm not interested in this fight at all. It's such a weird one.
Neither, mate. If the fight does happen, I think it'll be a whole decision or something. But I don't see Anderson doing much more now in the UFC or in MMA at all. I think it's time to hang up the gloves because, as we say, we don't want him to go down the same road as BJ Penn, which he's already kind of there. But if he fights again and then hangs up the gloves, I think his legacy will be still intact. But if he doesn't and he keeps fighting, then, like you say, his legacy is just going to keep going downhill. But I'm not really too interested in this fight anyway.
So I mean, I don't know what's going through his head, whether it's his team and his management sort of persuading him to continue. I don't know, but no, I don't really want to see him fight again. To be honest, it's a shame. I've got nothing but respect for Anderson himself and his accomplishments inside the octagon, but no, I don't. I think his time's up.
Well, that was the last on my list. What else do you want to talk about, mate?
Well, just sort of from my standpoint, I wanted to talk about the obviously the Whyte Povetkin fight coming up, and very briefly next on the Grand Prix that happened last weekend, the F1 Spanish Grand Prix. Just tad, but with the Whyte versus Povetkin, I'm looking forward to this one because you look at Dillian Whyte. Obviously, he's on a rampage 11-fight win streak since his loss to Anthony Joshua. I think you look at his last fight against Vosh back in December last year on the same card as Joshua Ruiz too. He was huge, overweight, and that sort of played a factor in the fight. He just was not himself at all. It's a tough one. He's only lost once in his career now, so like I said, that's Joshua. But you look at pictures of him now, he looks in decent shape. He looks in great shape. He looks fit enough, and we'll see a different Whyte compared to the one we saw against Vosh back in December. I was very disappointed in that performance, but should he beat Povetkin, he has to be left as sort of the number one contender and the mandatory challenger for either Fury or Joshua's belts. Fury has recently come out and said, I'm not sure on Wilder. Do I want to wait around? Do I want to fight him? Or do I want to fight Wilder? Do I want to fight Dillian Whyte because he deserves it? He's a mandatory challenger. I think that's a smart move. I don't want to see a third fight with Wilder. As interesting as it may be, hypothetically speaking, Wilder's already, Fury's already tuning up from my standpoint. I know the first one was a draw. That was sort of a smokescreen to sort of keep their unbeaten record intact. And the second fight obviously went Fury's way. So Whyte has obviously previously held the WBC silver and international titles, a couple of Commonwealth titles here and there. But with a big win over Povetkin, I think it'll be an interesting one to see. I think with Povetkin, he lost to Joshua back in 2018, responded with a big win over Hughie Fury, and then had a hard-fought battle with Michael Hunter. I very much enjoyed that one. He's also had a lot of experience under his belt. He's sort of held several titles here and there, and he's lost to Joshua and Klitschko, and it'll be a very tough fight for White. You look at Povetkin, he weathered an early storm against Hunter. He put the Russian in trouble. And we haven't seen that for a while. We haven't seen many, probably since obviously Joshua, or maybe a bit before that, Povetkin being, putting a lot of pressure and a lot of trouble. If he makes the same mistakes, I don't think White will let him off the hook. His left hand and his left hook ability, knockout with White is just sensational. He can knock anyone out in an instant. He has the power to expose any holes in Povetkin's game, and I think he will have the endurance to sort of last. I think it'll be an interesting one to see. I think with White, he has the advantage in the height and obviously the weight and the reach, and that's going to sort of pay significance in the fight. And it's very well. It works well, extremely working off the back of his feet, constantly pouring away at his opponent with the stiff jabs, letting go with his right hand as well. I think with this size, it'll be a big factor going into this fight. Povetkin will have his chances early on, but I think as the fight goes on, White will sort of dominate the proceedings just with his sheer movement and the speed and his power, and his movement in the pocket is brilliant as well. As with regards to my prediction, I do see White winning this one. I'm very much looking forward to this one. I think White has all the ingredients to win the fight. I'll probably go by decision just because it's sort of post-COVID. It's sort of, we're in the middle of a crisis. I don't know. Obviously, both men are going to be in training, but with no crowd, it's going to be a bit of a weird one. They're both going to be cautious in their approach. So yeah, I do see White winning this one by decision. And then moving on to my final sort of topic on the F1, obviously the Spanish Grand Prix happened. I watched a little bit of it. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton qualified first and then obviously finished first, and it was just nothing short of spectacular. He's just in another league of his own right now. I mean, I'm running out of superlatives for him this season. He's been absolutely brilliant. It's just he has, I think it was 24 seconds over Max Verstappen. That was obviously one of the standout, but he controlled the race from start to finish, took total control, and there's many variables and sort of ways in which a lot of the drivers themselves struggle, and he was just pitch perfect at the lights. He was quick from the get-go, and I think he was leading throughout the majority of the race, and none of them had an answer for Lewis Hamilton. It was absolutely sensational. I think he'll certainly walk away with the title this season, with no disrespect to Max Verstappen and all the others. It's got all the ingredients for another Lewis Hamilton title win. But Verstappen himself qualified third but finished second. I know when you look at it on paper, finishing 24 seconds off the leader, it may not sound great at all, and you may have thought it was one-sided, but there was some sort of brilliance in Verstappen's approach, and he split the Mercedes despite the big pace advantage, and he lapped Alex Albon a couple of times, and Verstappen sort of controlled a lot of the hunt and pack, if you will, throughout the race. And although he finished 24 seconds behind Hamilton, you can be very impressed with his performance and some of his heroics last weekend. It's a shame he didn't do a lot better, and he was decent in qualifying, but I think with Verstappen, he's just and same with the rest of the pack, really. They're just too far behind Lewis Hamilton. I think it's just going to be a one-sided affair, and it's a shame, really. But you got to give a lot of credit to Lewis Hamilton. He looks like he's getting better, and I think Verstappen, he's got all the ingredients to be a great driver come next season. But right now, it's all about the Lewis Hamilton show. And last weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix, it just showed the golfing class between Lewis Hamilton and the rest of the pack, and he was absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, I think he will walk this season. Yeah, that's all from me, mate. Like I said, I know that's all from you, but have you got anything else to add, or so?
No, I think that's everything. Again, anything else you've got?
No, not with me. I mean, obviously, as a footballing fan, the season's coming around the corner, and then that all kicks off with the Community Shield. It's either next week or the week after, and we're still in the midst of the transfer window, and I'm very much looking forward to the sort of business we do, and same probably with you if you're not doing any at all. But that's all from me, mate.
Well, that's all from me. Everyone, we've got the Facebook page, the Sports Sesh podcast on Facebook. Go check that out, and both our Twitters will be in the description. And unfortunately for you guys, you have had to sit through 50 minutes of us two talking and not with a guest. So hopefully we'll have a guest on in a couple of episodes' time. Cheers, James.
Yeah, cheers for having me, mate. Take care.